Joining us now to discuss how the city can work to avoid day zero is former Director General of the Department of Water Affairs and now at the Wits School of Governance, Professor Muller. Prof. Muller advises a variety of organizations on water and development issues from local to global level and has chaired the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council on Water Security. Prof, good evening and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. I guess the question on many people's lips tonight is why are we facing level 2 water restriction and flow control measures in Gauteng?
Okay, good evening to you and your viewers. Oh, as you know, it's a long story and it starts with the simple things. It's been a very hot October. The rain hasn't started yet in Gauteng. And when it's hot and there's a lot of rain, there's no rain and it's springtime, the gardeners want to water their gardens. People want to stay cool, fill up swimming pools if they're lucky enough to have them or go to the public pools. And we tend to use much more water than we normally would. And if that wasn't enough, we also have a small problem with the electricity, which keeps cutting out in different places. And if you live in a suburb which is supplied with water by a reservoir, a concrete sort of reservoir up on a hill, and that reservoir is filled by a pump. Well, when the electricity gets cut, the pump gets cut, there's less water in the reservoir, and so people start losing their water supply. Those are little local problems. It's hot weather. It's aggravated by load shedding, and we're not particularly surprised by it. Yeah. Although it would be nice for the people in those suburbs if perhaps the reservoir were bigger or people were more diligent about saving water. Yeah. But there are some bigger problems, and perhaps we need to talk about the big problems, because I think that's what's been raised today.
Absolutely. Let's do that. Some of the commentators, one in particular, Professor Turton, saying it's not fair that you blame us as the residents for this poor performance in terms of the water system. We are not necessarily, in terms of per capita usage, particularly that high, because 40% of the water is lost via I think 18% they say is through general leaks, and the other bit is commercial losses that are unaccounted for. So it's not that we as residents are the one who are wasting the water. It's just the system itself is not being properly taken care of. Let's start with that one first, and then we're going to come to this issue of capacity as well.
Okay. I'll tell you as a start, with respect, I wouldn't ask a political scientist and an ex-national intelligence agent to tell me what's wrong with the water supply. So I know Tony well. He wants to be dramatic, but he's missing the point. The question is not, who's using how much water and how do we compare with the rest of the world. The question is, how much water do we usually provide to the people in Johannesburg and other cities? And are we trying to provide them with more because it's hot? And are we having some problems? And of course, that's true. Now, we know how much water is available. And we have been saying for some time, when I say we, I'm talking about the water engineers and scientists and planners. We've been saying that Gauteng desperately needs additional capacity of supply. And that was originally supposed to have been built already. So now this is a bit of an Eskom story. It should have been finished this year, the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 project, which would bring more water in and, everyone would be happy. That project has been delayed. We hope it's going to be this month, got to sign the contract to build the dam. So that'll take us another 5 years. Now, for 5 years, we're going to have the same amount of water and probably 3 million more people wanting to use it. That's going to mean we better get ready to use our water more carefully, because it's going to have to be shared between more people. And what we're seeing today and this week and this month is already an indication that we'll have to be more careful to avoid periods when there are water shortages and there are water interruptions. Fortunately, being inefficient is quite useful. because it means there's places where we can make savings. We can save on leaks. We can administer the water more carefully. But water users are going to have to learn to use less. And you just have to walk around Johannesburg or any of the other towns of Gauteng, and you'll see plenty of water going to waste. Some of it in the streets where the municipal infrastructure hasn't been fixed quickly enough, but quite a lot in people's houses as well. So I think the story is the long-term story, and this is the one that I worry about more, is that over the next 2, 3, 4, and 5 years until 2028, we're going to have less and less water per person, and that means we've got to use what we've got much more carefully. And I think that message is getting through. What the minister said today, which kind of acknowledged this, he says, look, the Rand Water hasn't been using all the water that's available. They've been using the water that they've got a license to take out of the Vaal River system. And we'll give them a couple of weeks of grace. They can take more water than they would usually have a license for, just to ease the pain for a little bit. But that can't last, because if we carry on taking too much out of the Vaal River system, if we walk into a drought, which we're quite likely to do in the next couple of years, then we'll find ourselves with not enough in storage, not enough in reserve, and then we will be following Cape Town down the day zero path, which we definitely don't want to do.
So you're saying with the current La Nina global weather, which has resulted in many saying the integrated Vaal water system sitting at what, 93%, that 93% is not for us to use?
That 93% is very unusual, that we come to the end of the winter and we've got so much water in storage. The La Nina system has smiled on us. You know, the La Nina, the little girl in Spanish, the little girl has smiled on us here up inland in South Africa. We've had 3 fantastic years of rain, and so all the dams are full. We are expecting the La Nina to go, what they say, neutral, and I have to say the climatologists are all waiting to see if it's going to switch into an El Nino, which will mean a shortage of water. So you see that we have to plan. We don't know how much water is going to come next year or the year after. There's a higher being that decides that, whether it's going to rain or not. But we need to plan expecting there to be a drought sometime. And we need to have enough water in our dams, in our storage, to be able to see us through the drought. We can enjoy 7 fat years, but we must be prepared for 7 lean years. And so normally Rand Water would not be allowed to take as much water as they've been allocated for the next few weeks, but we've been given a warning. We now have to start tightening our belts, or putting kinks in our hose pipes to reduce the amount of water that's used, the amount of water that's lost, and just use our water more sensibly, just so that we don't do what Cape Town did and find ourselves after 3 good years suddenly facing 3 bad years and not being able to cope with them.
How do we resolve the capacity issue or the storage issue at reservoir level? Because it seems that's where much of the problem has been, at least in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, look, those. I sometimes feel a little bit like a big national, overseer. I think those are local problems that municipalities must prioritize. They must find out whether it's actually too small a reservoir, whether they can adjust the supply area. The city of Johannesburg, Joburg Water, the utility that runs it, is dividing the city into smaller zones where it controls the pressure more tightly, and it also can reduce leakages that way. So there's lots of things that the municipal water managers can do, and that might include building more reservoirs. It might just include managing the distribution better. Those are things that we can actually expect the local municipality operators to do. I think those things will continue to have problems here and there, but what we need to worry about, the big picture, is can we, as a province and the surrounding areas, can we manage what we have, share it about fairly, use it properly, and make sure that we stay water secure until we get to the stage where we've got another addition to the supply from Bodihadi, the new dam that's going to be built in Lesotho.
Professor Mike Muller, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on tonight. Wits School of Governance, Professor Mike Muller, and former Director General at the Department of Water Affairs.